Well, Shabbat Shalom. So have you ever waited too long? You thought maybe you'd be able to do it later, thought there was plenty of time, thought, let me just get this one thing in order and I'll do it, only to find that the opportunity passed you by. Perhaps you were chatting at a party and by the time you got around to the buffet, you found all the food was gone. I missed the desserts at my own wedding. I didn't even know they were out. Perhaps you had a crush and you never had the nerve to say anything, only to find out later when that person was in a relationship that they had a crush on you too. Somebody said, he knows. I recently had that happen with my boys in Harry Potter. We are reading the books, the three of us together, so we can only read when we're all together, and then we watch the movie afterward, only to find that by the time we got done with the fifth book, the movies were no longer on demand. It was a tragic moment in my household. It's a silly example, hardly anything to keep you up at night, but an easier one to share than the one that's really pressing on my conscience. But before I share that story, I'd like to share the story of the Nisi'im, the princes, the tribal heads, and how they waited too long thousands of years ago. This week we read from Parashat Terumah. For the next month we'll be reading about the building of the Mishkan, this traveling sanctuary that we brought with us throughout the wilderness, a holy space for God to dwell in. In this week's reading, we hear all the materials that the people bring as gifts towards building this holy building. The people bring gifts of whatever their hearts move them to give. There are two oddities I'd like to discuss that inform one another in the building of the Mishkan. The first is that when speaking about collecting the various materials used to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the Torah enumerates them in descending order of value. It goes from gold to silver to copper, etc. However, at the end of the list, after having enumerated some of the least expensive items like wood and oil and spices, the Torah then says, it mentions the shosham stones, the precious stones used in the ephod, the high priest's breastplate. So we wonder, why are these precious stones out of order in the catalog of solicited items? The second oddity is that the princes of each tribe were the ones who brought those precious stones as donations. However, when they are pictured bringing the stones, which we'll read in Vayakhel, the word used there for princes, Nesi'im, is spelled without a yud. It's spelled incorrectly. So what's going on? According to the Midrash, Sifrei Bamidbar, in our Torah portion, when Moses tells the people to bring whatever their hearts move them to give, and towards the building of the Mishkan, the Nisi'im said to one another, let Israel give what they will, and then we'll fill in whatever they lack. They waited. And what happened? They waited too long. The Israelites brought more than they ever expected. There was nothing left for the princes to give. Although their motives seem good, they wanted to wait till the end and cover the shortfall. Chazal tells us that this wasn't the right attitude. They should have enthusiastically been amongst the first to give, the first to donate. Because of their lack of haste in their donation, a letter was removed from their title. Because they were too late to give to the materials of the building of the Mishkan, when the time came to dedicate the completed Mishkan, the Nisi'im were the first in line with their contributions toward the breastplate that the high priest would wear. And that's why we have those 12 precious stones, one from each of the princes. They learned a lesson from the construction of the Mishkan because they didn't feel relief when it seemed like there wouldn't be any need for them to give a gift. They weren't pleased to save the money. Instead, they felt a panic. And when all they could contribute were stones for the breastplate, they were disappointed and tried to compensate for their loss. We still wonder what was so wrong with what they did. It sounds noble at first glance, waiting to see what's needed and being willing to donate any shortfall. But one problem with this rationalization is that they assumed that there would be a deficit. The princes underestimated the generosity of the people of Israel. They should have expected that everyone would want to give generously. And if they waited too long, they'd have no contribution to make to enable them to have a share in creating this beautiful holy space. Who gave them the right to make such an assumption about the people of Israel? And they were, in fact, wrong. Everything was given to the extent that Moses had to tell the people to stop giving. Another thought may be that they were reluctant to give, that they were lazy or selfish. This too is a possibility. However, through the Midrash's eyes, we see that the Nisi'im understood that contributing to this project was a privilege. Perhaps it was an honorable mistake. Perhaps they were afraid to give more than their share and that others would be intimidated by their huge gifts. Maybe they didn't want to hog all of the sponsorship opportunities. I know, it's a danger. There's so many lessons that we can glean from this chapter of Torah, and I know you'll explore many more of them tomorrow in Torah study. The one that's pressing on me tonight, though, is the need for zerizut, the need for seizing opportunities in life. For not giving excuses for our impulse to laziness, when we feel the desire to pass the puck and let other people do work, to let somebody else foot the bill, or let other people bear the load. We should remember the Nisi'im and how badly they felt when the opportunity to contribute might have passed them by. It's an honor to give what matters. It's an honor to contribute what we can. The ability to participate is a privilege. We should want to put in the effort to not just be receivers, but to become investors. When you devote time and energy to something, it becomes more precious to you. And you shouldn't cheat yourself out of that connection. We also often underestimate other people and their capacity and desire towards giving. How many times have we wanted to give to a cause we cared about and missed the window? Another lesson we can glean from the Nisi'im is how often we cheat ourselves out of the opportunity to be generous because we tell ourselves lame stories. Either that our gifts aren't good enough or that we can always do it later. But we can't always do it later. So all of this is a great pitch to those of you who have heard about our capital campaign but are still waiting to give. Get a move on. Don't worry if you don't believe your gift won't be enough. Don't worry about giving others a chance to give. Believe me, everyone will have a chance. Personally, though, this is my Torah tonight because I waited too long and I lost my chance to do something very important. I learned that someone who had been a huge part of my life, a best friend and a boyfriend for 4 years, had a terminal brain tumor. I learned about 6 months ago. We hadn't spoken in years. Both of us had moved on, started our own families. When I brought my family home to Fort Wayne this summer, I got his phone number from a mutual friend, but I didn't call. I thought he wouldn't want to hear from me. I worried that what I had to say wouldn't be enough. I let time slip by. I was busy. Anyway, he had plenty of people who were reaching out, plenty of people supporting him. And then last week, my family and I went to Universal. The last time, the only time I'd been there before, was with this guy, with Todd. And so I kept thinking about him, and I realized what I wanted to say to him, that I was sorry he was given such a raw hand, sorry he wouldn't see his kids grow up and start families of their own. And I was so grateful for who he was in my life, what he taught me, all the memories. I really just wanted to say thank you. I resolved to call him on Sunday. I even visualized it. But before I made the call, Facebook let me know that he had died. I waited too long. I was scared my gifts weren't enough, and I rationalized that other people would be enough. And maybe they were more than enough, but I lost the ability to give what I wanted to give. And so this Shabbat, I'm saying Kaddish for Todd, and my message to you is to learn from my mistake, and don't wait. Reach out now, give now. Shabbat Shalom.